We the people supposed to be equal, but the men who wrote that, they was evil. Slave owners who did not include us, they just used us and abused us.
In terms of legalization of drugs, I think that the battle, the war on drugs has been an utter failure, and I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws. But I'm not somebody who believes in legalization of marijuana. What I do believe is that we need to rethink how we are operating in the drug wars, and I think that currently we are not doing a good job.
Why do I think it's illegal? Yeah, I don't really know.
Inertia, history, an old law that just will not come off the books because it's been there forever.
Because it can't be taxed.
It was based on racism. There's also, I think, industrial reasons why it's illegal as well.
I think it is illegal. Actually, I don't know why.
Because of the government, and they can't tax it.
Because people have it's the potential to use it in a bad way.
And they created a vast government bureaucracy to fight prohibition, and then prohibition went out. They needed something to do with this bureaucracy.
It's illegal because it's a drug.
Beats me.
Because it's harmful. I guess just sort of a history.
I just think they don't know how to control it. So if they can't control it, make it illegal.
Because we live in a country based on Puritan values.
The reasons that marijuana is illegal today are many and complicated.
The government and politicians have failed to listen to many, many government commissions that over the past 100 years have said that marijuana should not be criminalized.
The only powerful organized forces on the issue were those that were advocating for keeping it illegal.
Marijuana is illegal because there's a perception of harm behind it. People think it's so harmful that it must remain illegal for all people to use.
In the 1930s, I think there were some misunderstandings about marijuana. There are all kinds of side issues about whether we should encourage or discourage the hemp industry as opposed to maybe some other fibers. There are issues involving prohibition, which had just ended, and the question of how much competition do we want with this new beer and alcohol industry.
It was basically a corporate conspiracy that lives to this day. It's now grown to serve the purposes of the law enforcement community generally. It's a full employment for cops and all the people associated with that. What a waste of money.
It dates from a wave of complete hysteria and exaggerated propaganda back in the 1920s and 30s.
You know, the reason why it was made illegal is pretty clear when you look at the historical record of the Reefer Madness days. Totally racism, totally against immigration.
The origins were obviously in racism, and you also had the prohibition establishment, alcohol prohibition establishment that sort of found themselves out of work and were able to latch on to another substance that they could very easily demonize because people didn't really know what it was. They put a Spanish name on it, marijuana, which sounded quite scary to a lot of Americans, and were sort of able to demonize this and keep their network established and flourishing around a drug that people had a lot less experience with than they did with alcohol.
It's the easiest thing in the world for the police to concentrate on catching a cannabis user. It's much easier to detect someone smoking a joint in an alleyway than it is someone doing a line in a bathroom. And so it takes a very low level. It's what do they call the lowest fruit that gets picked.
Marijuana is illegal because the people want it to be illegal. If you look at the polling, it's only 36% of the American people support making marijuana legal. So it's what the people want, is to keep it illegal. Now, why is that? The main reason is, of course, because of the government and its disinformation campaign ever since the federal government made marijuana illegal in 1937. So when you have literally billions of dollars being spent over the course of 70 years to trash marijuana, the image of marijuana, the image of marijuana users by the federal government, and then you don't have a response to that by people who are willing to actually tell the truth, then you're going to have a populace that's very afraid and misinformed. And that's what we have now.
Big business does not want us to know that we can cure cancer forever at very low cost.
Dear old Donnie Rumsfeld, you know, our chief torturer, chief liar on 9/11, one of the chief liars, was the CEO of Searle Pharmaceuticals. Why would the pharmaceutical companies want you to be able to grow a plant in your backyard that might cure your menstrual cramps, might solve your headache, might give a terminally ill cancer patient you know, some chance at gaining some weight and having a tiny quality of life? If you can grow that in your backyard, there's no net profit for corporations, and we already know what net profit means to stock prices.
10 states have passed laws permitting the use of medical marijuana, but today the court ruled that the federal ban on marijuana supersedes those state laws. Polling has shown that a large majority of Americans consistently support the use of medical marijuana. Still, in a 6-3 decision, the justices said that federal authorities may prosecute sick people who use marijuana, even if it's at the direction of a doctor.
Jesse Ventura joins me.
Hi, Geraldo.
Great to see you.
Great to see you again.
So I know you've held the view on decriminalization. Why, and how do you support it, and how do you defend it against parents who are so concerned?
Well, it's simple. You either read and study history, or you're destined to repeat it, Geraldo. We're repeating it. This is the identical same thing to the prohibition of alcohol. The minute alcohol was prohibited, that's what created all these border towns like Tijuana, Nuevo Laredo, and all these towns, Nogales, where they're having all the trouble, because all the U.S. people that wanted to drink in those days ran across the border and drank in Mexico. Well, that brought the prostitution, it brought the other behavioral problems down there. The simple thing is this: when you prohibit something, it doesn't mean it's going away. It just means it's going to be run by criminals now, because it's not above board. Well, the criminals eventually get so wealthy, they become more powerful than the government, which is a great deal of what's happening in Mexico right now. They have more guns, I might add. They get them from the U.S. because it's illegal to own a gun in Mexico. They got the guns, they got the power, they got the money. By decriminalizing, they're out of business. They have to find something new. It's not rocket scientists, Geraldo. It just takes politicians with some courage. Politicians who aren't afraid of, who aren't worried about jeopardizing their re-election, and simply do what's right. Decriminalization is the way out of this, and for parents who are worried about it, parent. And that'll be the answer to the problem. I'll put it this way: are people getting shot over alcohol and tobacco?
Not anymore.
And yet both of those drugs are worse than marijuana. I've never met someone who smokes pot and goes home and beats their wife up. I've met a lot of people that drink and do that. And I myself was an addict to Copenhagen, chewing tobacco. One of the most difficult things I ever quit in my life. Well, marijuana's not addictive. Not physically, it can be psychologically, but it is not a physical addiction like nicotine, and we allow those two drugs. Why wouldn't we allow marijuana? And then if you take it to the medicinal end, we allow doctors to give us morphine, but they can't give us pot? What's wrong with this picture?
Take a look at this. Barack Obama getting some unusual questions from voters in Iowa. At one event, a man asked him about his past marijuana use, specifically if he had inhaled.
The presidents that were running, did they inhale?
I did. It's not something I'm proud of. Maybe it was a mistake as a young man, but, you know, I mean, I'm not going. I never understood that line. The point was to inhale. That was the point.